don't think that it's all about the future. I think a lot of it is now. When you're taking something to court, you're an attorney, and you haven't validated that it's still good case law, that's really not an AI problem, right? That's kind of an attorney problem.
Welcome to Between the Briefs, a podcast by Steno. We're here to bring you practical tips, expert insights, and real conversations about the pretrial process, court reporting, and the legal technology shaping the future of litigation. I'm your host, Adrian.
And I'm your host, Joe Stevens. Whether you're an attorney, paralegal, or just curious about how technology is changing the legal industry, we've got something for you. Each episode will break down complex topics, share behind-the-scenes intel, and talk to the people leading innovation in and out of the courtroom. So grab a coffee and let's get into what's happening between the briefs.
Hello and welcome to Between the Briefs, brought to you by Steno. We're your hosts. My name is Adrian.
And I'm your co-host, Joe Stevens.
In this episode, we're thrilled to welcome Sean Fitzpatrick, CEO of LexisNexis North America, UK, and Ireland. Sean is a seasoned leader with a wealth of experience driving innovation and delivering insights to the legal profession through technology. He's been with LexisNexis since 2005 and has helped transform the way legal professionals access information, collaborate, and streamline their work.
Sean is at the forefront of some exciting developments in the legal tech space, particularly with AI and e-discovery. His vision for a personalized AI assistant for every legal professional is reshaping the future of legal practice.
Sean, welcome to the show. It's great to have you with us here today. How are you?
Well, thank you very much for having me on. I'm doing great.
Love that, man. I'm happy to have you here. It's very exciting. So I want to start from the beginning. Let our audience know, how did you first begin diving into legal tech, and what has driven you to get to where you are today?
Yeah, so I was a consultant with McKinsey & Company, and I was working with companies that had big data, and they were looking for ways to take that content and embed it into technology solutions to create new products for their customers. And LexisNexis came along, and they were looking to do something very similar with legal content. And at the time, this was the very early 2000s. They had kind of moved from being a publisher to being an online provider of content. They took the content, they put it behind the firewall, they put a search engine on top of it and a firewall, firewall there. So people had to pay to access it. And that was kind of as far as they had gotten with the technology. So I just saw this as a massive opportunity to change an industry. And that's what got me excited and got me on the train.
Sean, would you sort of see now the rocket ship that I think AI has brought into everything, every industry, legal tech specifically? I mean, how transformative and revolutionary do you feel like it is? Is there a way for you to actually just begin quantifying that?
I think it's going to be very transformational. I don't think that it's all about the future. I think a lot of it is now. A lot of the technology and innovations have already been developed and can be used. But if we would just roll back the clock 3 years, it's May of 25. 3 years ago was May of 22. None of us would have even known what the term generative AI meant at that time. So I think that the innovations, and they're coming much more quickly now than they have in the past. They're going to allow us to do things that we can't even imagine doing today, just like we're doing things today that we couldn't have imagined doing 3 years ago.
It's amazing how fast it all moves, especially in today's day and age of AI. I'm curious, what traits do you feel you really encompassed and brought with you over to LexisNexis from your time at McKinsey?
Yeah, I think that there are probably a lot of things that you learn, when you're at McKinsey that, help you to be a better general manager. I think dealing with people is probably the most important one. I think to be successful as a general manager, you've got to be able to, build a team of people. You've got to work well with your colleagues. You got to be, following a good leader. So I think that's probably one big skill. Problem solving is another big skill. So, how do you, take a big challenging problem and break it down into pieces that are manageable and can be solved. And then, just the fact that I was working with big data problems, and, converting those into new products, that very much fit into what I ended up doing when I came to LexisNexis.
Sean, when you, given again the combination of what you just talked about with your history and the skill set that you brought with you from McKinsey, I'm also a practicing attorney, and I'm really curious. Right now, we've got this collision of worlds where you do have people, especially sort of practitioners who've been around for a while, who have a skill set they've developed one way. Now there's this whole sort of addition of AI, this new technology that allows people to learn and operate and think very differently. Do you think that those same principles that you're talking about from McKinsey and sort of it all still translates seamlessly? Or are you seeing actually AI even fundamentally reshape the way that you organize and you think about the organizational structure of Lexis internally?
Well, yeah, I think that I have a lot more tools to do that now than I ever had before. Things like deep research, for example, that would have taken months to do if we had to do it, with people the way we did it, historically. Now with these models, you can get, you can't get the answer, but you can get the 75% answer in, less than a day, like in probably less than an hour in most cases. And that's really powerful. And I think what that's done is it's just accelerated the pace of everything.
So you mentioned how fast AI has moved in the past 3 years. What have you seen being the biggest tool? What form of AI do you guys use to really revolutionize how you're doing work over at LexisNexis?
Well, the answer might not be what you expect. I think the thing that's revolutionized it for us more than anything is our customers, right? Because that's really where we start with all of this. We sit down with our customers, we talk about the technology and the capabilities of the technology, and then we talk to them about their practice area and about the jobs that they do every day and the tasks. And then we, work together to think about, well, what are the things that this technology could do that could help you be more productive, that could help you drive better outcomes in the practice of law. And then, we take that broad list and we narrow it down to some things that we think that we can solve. And then we work together with our customers to solve them. So I think customers is probably the answer.
Sean, do you, I also teach at law school, right? So the Lexis is a phrase that is tossed around sort of hourly here, right? It's what I used when I was in law school as well, and it's definitely what my students use predominantly here too. But what do you say to sort of AI skeptics? I mean, everyone seems to have to be embracing it now, but I think one of the things that you see a lot of too is that there is some fear around it. And then, of course, the big headline grabbers are the people who are being sanctioned because they, cases pop up that don't actually exist, and then they don't verify that output. Like, so how are you dealing with AI skeptics, first of all? And secondarily, like, if one of those fears involves hallucinations of AI, what do you do internally to sort of, what is your narrative around that?
Yeah, so obviously we do a lot to try and eliminate hallucinations. But when you're taking something to court, if you're an attorney and you haven't validated that it's still good case law, that's really not an AI problem, right? That's kind of an attorney problem. And but our job is to help you do that, right? So if we produce a case as part of your research, and say, this is what we're basing our answer on, in our system, you can then click on that case and you can read the case law summary to make sure it's on point, and you can look at the Shepherd's report and make sure that it's still good law. So we give people the tools to quickly and easily validate it. But as far as law school students, first of all, thank you, Joe, for bringing on that next generation. It's so important to this industry. But the graduates and the class that's just about to graduate will be the most technically advanced cohort of attorneys that we've ever had in the history of the world. And, they are going to be bringing this technology into the firms with them. They're not just digitally native, they're digitally fluid. They've been moving from one application to the next application, to the next application, to the next best thing their entire lives, right? So this move to generative AI for them was pretty seamless. And I think they play a big role in terms of showing the rest of the legal world, the different ways that it can be used and how it can be helpful.
And just a quick follow on that. I think you're exactly right. I think that bears to be dead on true. Do you think then that there are skills that, because they are so tech fluent, that are being underdeveloped? I mean, I know you're not sort of in that world, but I'm wondering if you just see even on your end the way that now that AI has become what it has become, you're seeing whether it's just internally, like the skill set is just shifting. What you expect out of someone who's just starting their career now because of the tool that they have at their disposal is meaning that they actually have to work on things that 5 years ago, 10 years ago, they were bringing with them out of law school or out of whatever education they were getting.
Right. Yeah. No, there are certainly, there are still gaps. I think that, this technology can be a tool that helps close those gaps. So like if you talk to, senior attorneys and say, what is this new group of attorneys that are just, graduated from law school, what are they lacking? The thing that I hear most often is legal writing skills, right? Uh, you know, if you have more time to focus on developing your legal writing skills because other parts of what you used to do are automated or just work, more efficiently than they have in the past, then you can graduate being a better legal writer. And if you have tools and, generative AI is really, really good at writing things, right? At least first draft, right? I think those things can help you become a better writer. And, you might take something that you wrote and put it through the system and ask it for suggestions. And then when you read those suggestions and you make your edits, you become a better writer. That's part of the process, right? So I think these tools can really help fill some of the gaps that graduates are coming into the firms with.
Your company has been servicing attorneys for a very long time, right? As Joe mentioned, it's synonymous with just going to law school and
Yeah,
understanding, well,
50 plus
Lexis.
years.
It's a core part of getting into law. I'm curious what the biggest insight or surprise that you have found it working with lawyers. What has been one thing that's really like just caught your attention and like, wow, this is very particular to this industry?
Well, I think that one of the things that's unique about the law is that it attracts some of the brightest minds that you'll find anywhere. And so, I don't know that it was necessarily a big surprise that when I came into the legal world, but it's certainly been something that's refreshing. Just having the opportunity to speak with the folks that are in the industry, the incredible ideas that they have, and the innovation and the structure that they learn in terms of the way that they speak and make arguments and have discussions. It's certainly been something that I've learned from and that I've always been impressed by.
Sean, the AI is so, letting it out of the bottle, right? Like this light, it's everyone, there's a tremendous amount of excitement and everyone sort of has their version of what the future holds. How are you cautious with it? I mean, how do you sort of balance, okay, we've got this exciting new digital revolution going on that has so much potential, but then how do you sort of make sure that the way you innovate is not done without caution, but also you don't want to stifle that innovation internally? How does that work?
Yeah, so we have a set of principles. We call them our responsible AI development principles that we operate by. So that includes things like always considering the real world implications of everything that we're developing, ensuring that we don't enter or that we actively eliminate any bias that may be in the data, for example. So, we're very cautious in terms of how we're developing these products. Probably the thing that we hear the most from our customers is around privacy and security, right? So, as lawyers, you're dealing with some of the most sensitive documents anywhere. And, you're trusting LexisNexis to handle those documents. And, this is something that we've been doing for a long time. We've got enterprise level security. We've got end-to-end encryption, encryption at rest, encryption in use, through the entire process, everything's encrypted. So it's a responsibility that we take seriously. And we've been handling sensitive customer data for the entire time that we've been a company. So as I was saying earlier, over 50 years. So it's in our DNA, and we've developed an expertise in that area.
I would love to know what particular product has LexisNexis developed that really embeds AI that the average consumer may not know about?
Well, our products are generally focused on attorneys. So I think the general consumer, a lot of them don't even know what LexisNexis is. But when it comes to our product, we've developed something called Protege, and Protege is the brand name that we use for all of our AI technology. And then we put Protege into some of our products. So it exists today in the Lexis Plus AI product. It's our main flagship product. It also exists in our Create Plus product. We have it, connected to, the ability to connect it to a DMS, so it can access, a firm's internal work product, and it can take all of the content. We have 138 billion documents and records in our system that it can access, and answering questions, or drafting a document, or whatever you want to use the tool for. And so that's basically the way that we're bringing the product to life. And what we're doing now is really kind of focusing on the individual attorney workflows. So we think about, what does an attorney do? Well, it depends what kind of an attorney they are, right? So we want to talk to somebody, who does labor and employment, or real estate, or insurance defense, and talk to them about the specific tasks that they do, and help automate the tasks along those individual workflows.
Sean, with that's I didn't realize the sheer quantity of sort of documents that it can internally access when it gives the answers. That's staggering to me, quite frankly, although I shouldn't be surprised. But going back to the point you made about security, this is a thing that we talk about and we hear about all the time, right? I mean, especially when it comes to vetting AI products. I guess this is sort of a two-part question. What do you think are the best questions consumers can be and should be asking when it comes to security around AI as they're vetting different tools and whatnot? And secondly, you did give this the sort of the high-level pitch about why Lexis has been doing this for a while and that knows how to handle sensitive information. And obviously, it caters towards attorney, and there's confidentiality and privilege there. The questions that people should ask, and then the answers that you really give. I mean, is it really just an extension of the security that you've already had in place for years, or with AI, does it require a different level of diligence?
Yeah, I always say it requires a different level of diligence. And I think that the standards for security just keep increasing. And so, I would ask, what are the standards that you adhere to, from a security standpoint? And so, there are things like, SOC compliance standards, for example. And, when you're dealing with larger firms, these CIOs, they have their own set of requirements, the things that they're looking for. And of course, we're very focused on meeting those needs, in the federal government. You have a different set of standards, which we also meet. We're FedRAMP certified. We're the only legal research product that is. And so, we're meeting the highest level of security standards, for these top firms and for federal government agencies. If you're a solo attorney, you're probably focused a lot on the practice of law and probably don't know that much about security. But I think you can take a lot of comfort in knowing that, these larger firms in the federal government are both vetting our security standards and ensuring that they meet the highest level.
I would love to know what Lexis's approach to this current issue. We had a guest on earlier who mentioned a lot of firms just don't have someone in the position in the law firm that is in charge of implementing AI, implementing a new software, implementing new solutions. So is there an education piece that you guys are currently working on to inform lawyers that this is something worth having within their firm?
Yeah, we definitely have a lot of educational materials. We have courses that people can sign up to as they, subscribe to the product, to teach them how to use it and so on. And I would certainly encourage people to take full advantage of that. All of our customers, we also have newsletters that we send out, and we have an AI insider program that people can sign up for to kind of learn about the latest developments in the industry. And I think the best way to really understand the power of these tools is to use them, to try them and to see what they, if you want to try to draft a contract or, a motion that you might take into court, try it in the system and see what kind of result that you get. Play around with it a little bit. You don't have to be an expert. You don't have to be a prompt engineer. These tools have gotten so good that all of the prompt engineering work that, used to be so important just a year ago or 18 months ago. Now the tools, they have these planner agents and other things that will, work through a whole process. They've got reasoning agents to understand what the question is, bifurcate it into different pieces, send those pieces out to different models to get the right answers and pull it all back for you. So a lot of the work is happening now behind the scenes. So pretty much anybody can try and try the system out. There's nothing to implement. If you buy our system, we're a SaaS product. So you pay your subscription, you log into the website, and you have access to it. There's nothing to download on your computer or anything like that.
Sean, is there anything that you saw that forecasted this introduction of AI into the space? I mean, did you anticipate that this was a force that was something that you were going to be dealing with at any point, or was this something that when it kind of started bubbling up, it was a question about how quickly do we embrace this technology?
Yeah, I'd like to say that I saw this all coming, but the reality was I think that ChatGPT released in like November, like Thanksgiving week of 2022, and it was like the first week in December when people were really, it was kind of going mainstream, if you will. I found out about it, at the same time that everyone else did. Now we've been using AI technology in our products for years, natural language processing, machine learning. So we had an expertise when it came to AI and the tools that were available at the time. And that gave us a nice actual platform to work from. But in terms of the capabilities of the generative AI products, it was news to me. But when I saw it, when we saw it, our reaction was, this is going to be a game changer. This is going to make things fundamentally different going forward. As a matter of fact, we were walking into 2023 and we had our entire capital plan for the year laid out, everything we were going to design and build. And we spent like months getting that capital plan together and hiring all the resources. From the beginning of December until the end of December, we did nothing except replan. And we replanned everything around this generative AI initiative. We announced our first product in May, so just 5 months later, and then we actually launched it for general availability in October of 2023. So less than a year later, which is pretty record development time for us.
Was that speed to market important for you? I mean, I'm wondering how that. Or was it really just that quickly just to embrace it and see how it could layer on to the different products that you use, and you just wanted to be one of the first out there? Or how was that considered?
Yeah, well, we did, we wanted to be first to market with the product. So we worked extra hard, I guess you could say, during that period to really push the teams to develop something great. And, we wanted to make sure that it was an amazing product experience the first time customers used it. So we spent a ton of time working with customers. And even though it wasn't generally available until October, it was available to select customers, long before that. They were using it, testing it, giving us feedback, and we were refining it. But, when we actually launched in October, we had a bunch of pre-sales. Everyone was ready to get this thing and turn it on and try it. Not everyone, but there were lots of people that were. And so, yeah, we were there in the market. We were very early. And I think that, part of that process that we went through kind of allowed us to establish ourselves as one of the leaders in the legal tech space when it came to generative AI and just, it's not just generative AI anymore. I just call it AI because there's so many components to it now.
That's true. I would love to know, when you bring something to market that fast, I'm sure it has to come with some challenges or bumps in the road. Are there any particular challenges that you can recall that your team had? And if so, how did you get over them?
Yeah, I think that that no one really knew what these systems were capable of or exactly how they worked. And I think that was a major challenge for us. We went out and we're in a fortunate position. We've got a strong tech team and a good reputation in the tech space. So we were able to bring in a lot of super talented tech people. And we have these amazing relationships within the legal community. So we were able to leverage those as well to really think about, how this thing could be used in our industry to solve some important problems. And so our customers helped us with that. The technologists that we hired were then able to build what our customers were describing. And that's really how we got to market quickly. And those were some of the challenges, I guess, that we had to face along the way.
And do you have is there any sort of public data that you have or share about how many of your users actually use the AI functionality within Lexis?
Uh, I don't know that we have public information that we share about how many of them use it, but I'll tell you, it's the fastest growing technology that we've had. So of everything that we've introduced, nothing has taken off as quickly as the AI products have. Um, and we are going to be pretty soon here releasing some statistics on what the impact of that is for law firms that adopt it. So Jill's probably going to get mad at me for saying that, but that information will be coming out shortly.
What do you think the biggest challenge is when it comes to really the adoption of AI in these products? Attorneys are they're notorious for being very traditional. So what do you see as the largest challenge to usability?
Yeah, I think that technology adoption in legal often operates at a very measured pace, right? It's not that folks don't want to take risks. It's that they understand the stakes of the game. And so they want to be very careful and structured in their approach. And I think that we see that in AI as well. We just see it operating at a much faster pace. Like people are getting comfortable with it at a much faster pace than they have with other technologies. And part of it is, I think that the upside of it is so great, right? The upside of it's so great. People are willing to give it a shot maybe before they would have, with other technologies.
Sean, what do you think some of the other effects, just broad scale effects on the legal industry are going to be as a result? Adrian and I were chatting with another guest about this recently, and it was, the sheer amount of productivity enhancement that comes with this technology necessarily means that you're doing things more efficiently and quicker. And then how does that affect sort of the bottom line, the structure of these larger firms or firms that build a certain way that they do? I mean, I'm wondering more high level in your mind what you think the impact of this is going to be at large.
Yeah, I think that it's going to allow for a bit of democratization of legal services. So, there are 8 billion people on the planet. 5 billion of them have unmet legal needs. I think there's way more work out there that can possibly be done by the existing pool of legal professionals that we have. And I think this is a tool that's going to allow them to take a bigger chunk of that market. I think that, folks that use it are going to drive better outcomes. If you're an attorney and you're driving better outcomes for your customers, I think that means that you can charge more for it. That's typically the way things work when you create more value. I think that you'll be able to do them in less time. So, I don't know what this is, I don't know what's going to happen to the billable hour. I've been hearing about how it's going to die for 20 years and it's still the primary method that we have. So maybe that will continue, but if you do something that creates more value and you do it in less time and you're using a billable hour model, the math would tell you higher billing rates is probably going to be part of the equation as well.
You're one of the first to actually propose a solution of just increasing the billing rate. Some people are just saying, we have no idea what's going to happen. It's just leave it up in the air because we've asked this question to guests before. It's kind of contradictory to what the industry does for revenue.
Yeah, but what I said earlier about, some of the brightest minds get attracted into the legal profession, right? I'm not worried that the attorneys aren't going to be able to figure this one out. I'm pretty sure they'll figure it out.
Now, do you think there's anything attorneys should be worried about? We've had guests that have mentioned AI will replace lawyers, and we have others that say absolutely not. I'm curious what your stance is on that. Is there anything to be worried about?
Well, yeah, there are definitely things to be worried about, right? Like, don't believe anything, right? Like you need to be able to know that it came from a trusted source, right? Because it's amazing, how realistic the AI can be, when it makes things up or when people make things up using AI. So I would say that's a real concern. Be very concerned about security, right? We talked earlier about how sensitive this information is. If that information gets absorbed into a model, that's can be a major problem. So I would definitely be worried about that. Do I see this replacing lawyers? No, I don't. I see it as as augmenting lawyers. I think it's a tool that lawyers can use to become more efficient. I think it's a tool they can use to get better outcomes. But I don't see it replacing lawyers.
You talked, I want to say right from the jump, actually, and I really was intrigued by this, where you mentioned that you have some internal sort of guiding principles, which I love. And I would love to hear more about those. Because it's obviously one of those things I think traditionally you hear companies sort of broadcast or they have them, but then the question internally is, what do they actually mean and how guiding are they? Do you have, I mean, the principles that guide the development of any technology, including AI, are there any sort of ones, do you have any sort of ethical non-negotiables that drive the way you deal with AI? Or what are those principles in general that do guide the way that you actually build and run this company?
Yeah, I think because we're dealing with the law, and it's so important that we get this right. We can't rely just on the technology to do it. And so I think probably one of the most important principles that we operate by is human in the loop, right? So we always have humans in the loop, testing these products, checking them. You know, the you know when we started this, I anticipated hiring a lot of technical resources to help us with the development of the product, and we certainly did. What I didn't anticipate was that we would need to hire an army of lawyers to actually look at the outcome and provide feedback and say, yeah, this answer is better than that answer, or this answer is correct and that answer is not correct, so that we can take those answers and feed them back into the model and just continue to refine it and get it better. But I think that that human in the loop is super important. I think the bias point that I talked about earlier is important. We're looking at just, massive amounts of data. Some of them, have bias built into them. And so we want to make sure that we don't propagate that bias going forward. We need to figure out ways to actively eliminate it from the data set so that they become more useful.
We spoke earlier about how Lexis is kind of synonymous with anyone going to law school. You're going to hear the word if you're in the process of becoming a lawyer at some point. How did the company come to get to this point in embedding itself with growing with lawyers to then becoming a key part of their day-to-day job?
Yeah, well, back in the 1970s when LexisNexis was created, it was the first database of like online database of legal information. There was a joint product, or a joint project between a small company in Dayton, Ohio, and the Ohio Bar Association, and it started with customers. It started with attorneys at the Ohio Bar Association saying, "Hey, we'd like to have a way to look at this information online and to search for specific cases at that time." And then we've just developed over time, right? We've just continued to build on that, always starting with customers, always starting with our lawyers, trying to have their point of view with every product that we develop. Everything that we do is really focused on how do we make that a better experience for our customers. And I think we're in the envious position of having developed a good reputation of being able to do that over time. And now we're in every single accredited law school in the United States, and that has a big impact on preference going forward, right? Because people start to build that preference when they're in law schools. Yeah, right, Joe, you know it, right? And faculty have a big impact too. So
It's true. It's absolutely right. It's absolutely right. What about this one? You're talking about this where we obviously spent a lot of time talking about innovation and the history of how we got to now. And when we talk to other guests about the sort of tech revolution that AI is right now, it's interesting to hear their prior benchmarks. Very often people will say, we haven't seen anything like this since the digitization of case law research with tools like Lexis. So to have that role in this conversation too is really interesting. But where do you see this going? Like where, to the degree that you can speak about it, I'm interested where the sort of real priorities moving forward when it comes to innovation are with Lexis right now and what the focus is.
yeah, I think that the direction that it's going is more personalized, right? So right now you have a lot of tools that could be used, kind of by lots of different attorneys, like the ability to summarize, the ability to draft, and so on. I think that we're going to see things get very specific around, individual attorneys, practice areas, and jurisdictions. And I mean, like even right down to the individual attorney. As an attorney, people have different writing styles. They have different preferences. I think all of those things are going to be built into the models going forward. It's hard to say, where it's going. We see a lot of changes in technology just recently, like the reasoning models. Those have had a big impact on things. Modality, right? So, there, you know, uh, drawings now, for example, images, voice, video, all that's, available now. So you've got all these different modalities. Costs are coming down, right? Like in the very beginning, everyone was very worried about, how much is it going to cost to actually deliver this to customers? The cost of the models just keeps dropping and dropping and dropping and dropping. And then I think most importantly, like trust is getting more and more and more important because it's just so easy to fake anything now with generative AI. So I think those are some of the key trends that are going to affect things going forward. But it's hard to say what the technology is going to bring us next and what we're going to be able to do with that. But, I don't think things will change from our perspective. Our perspective is we'll understand that technology, we'll bring it to our customers. Our customers will help us figure out ways that we can use it. And that's what we'll continue to do. And that's part of the way that we're able to quickly develop the product that we launched in October of 2023 is we already had that process in place, right? It was a continuation of what we've been doing. Different technology, obviously, but a continuation of our processes.
You talked about trust. When it comes to companies using AI, there's going to be a lot of skeptics. What could they do to make sure that they build more trust with their consumers or even prospects, especially using a tool that is highly mistrusted as it is?
Yeah, well, I think that you need to go to a trusted source, right? When it comes to this technology, you need to work with someone that you can trust. But there has to be a level of transparency that's built into the system that you use because you can't just trust it. Like something's been generated, based on what? Like, right? You need to know what it was based on. Is that authoritative or is it not authoritative? And you have to have the ability to click through and see what that is and be able to make the determination as to whether or not this is something that you trust or something that you can't trust. So,
Sean, where is Lexis falling short right now in your eyes? What are the things that you're focused on making sure improve or I don't know, areas that you would like to see do better?
yeah, well, I think that there are just so many directions that we can go with this product to create, amazing products for our customers. So I think the biggest challenge that we have is, how do we pick the best ones because we can't do everything, and then how do we get enough resources, to build as many of those solutions as we possibly can. I think that's our biggest challenge going forward. It's really around speed and finding the resources that can help us build out these great ideas that our customers have.
What is the one thing you're looking forward to most with how quickly the industry's changing, how Lexis is really adopting this technology? What is your number one highlight for the future?
This is a topic we probably don't talk about enough, but LexisNexis is a mission-driven company. Our mission is to advance the rule of law around the world. And if you look at the strength of the rule of law in any jurisdiction, and the World Justice Project does a nice analysis, and they measure this, and you compare that to quality of life metrics, and you can kind of pick almost any quality of life metric you want. You can look at GDP per capita, you can look at life expectancy, you can look at infant mortality, and what you see is this incredibly tight correlation between the strength of rule of law and these quality of life metrics. And so one of the things that I'm excited about is that, as the rule of law improves, the quality of life improves. And how do we improve the rule of law, the strength of the rule of law around the world? We've got 8 billion people. We talked earlier about the 5 billion of them that have unmet legal needs. There's 4 billion of them that live outside the protection of the rule of law. I think these technologies can expand the rule of law more broadly across the world. And I think that can strengthen the rule of law in all jurisdictions, not just, jurisdictions that don't have a strong rule of law today, but even jurisdictions like the US that has a strong rule of law. I think it can get better. And as it gets better, it can improve the quality of life for people around the world. And that's really what excites me the most about it.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Take.
I didn't realize that there was that sort of access to justice, that mission. That's not something that I've been in and around like from law school on for a while now, and I didn't realize that was an underpinning sort of part of Lexis's mission. That's always been the case? Where did that come from?
It's been the case for a long time. At some point it was created. I don't know when that was, but yeah, like I said, we probably don't talk about it enough. We don't advertise it enough, but we do. We have a rule of law foundation, and we're focused on actually taking that and turning it into a reality. So, like some of the projects, I don't know, we can talk about this. I don't know if you're interested in it or not, but we've gone out to different countries like Nauru and let's see here, St. John's is another one, various African countries, the Fiji, the Cook Islands, and most of them have laws, right? Like you think about the foundational principles of having strong rule of law, you got to have laws. So like most of them figured that part out. But in all those cases that I just mentioned, they didn't have a great way of bringing all that information together, like in a structured way. So nobody really knew what the laws were. And so in those jurisdictions, our rule of law foundation has gone out. We work with the local officials. We've taken that. First, we went out and found the laws. And a lot of people have described it as stacks of acts. Like there's all these laws that are around and no one really knows, where they all are. But we've worked with the local officials to find them all and put them together and then digitize them. And then we organize them, right? So these are all the laws associated with real estate. And these are all the laws associated with family law and so on. And then we make them available to practitioners in those jurisdictions. So, again, this is just like one of the ways that we're trying to help advance the rule of law around the world using the tools and the resources that, are assets that are unique to us. So we're can bring something unique to the equation here.
That is an amazing insight. And you're right. I had no idea Lexis was involved with this. This is very cool to hear. Now, we always ask this at the end of our conversation, and that is, what is your hottest take on the industry right now?
My hottest take on the industry, it's going to be a little bit repetitive with what we've already talked about, but veracity matters in the law. It matters more than probably anywhere else, right? You have got to be able to trust the information that you're looking at. And in this world, you can't just trust anything, right? You need to be able to take it back to an authoritative source. And that would be my guidance for folks, is make sure that whatever product you're looking at, and there's lots of really good ones out there, make sure that you have that ability to verify and to ensure that you're working with something that you can actually trust.
Okay, amazing. Well, thank you to everyone. Thank you, Sean. Thank you to our audience for tuning into Between the Briefs, brought to you by Steno. A special thanks to our guest, Sean Fitzpatrick, for sharing his invaluable insights on the future of legal tech, AI, and the innovations that are shaping the legal profession. And of course, big thank you to my co-host, Joe Stevens, for another fantastic discussion.
Yeah, absolutely, Adrian. Thank you, Sean. And be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Stay tuned for more thought-provoking discussions at the intersection of law, technology, and innovation. We'll see you next time.
Up next on Between the Briefs.
I can think back to several times in my career where sometimes, because I wasn't the person who had the most experience, I did have to take a beat and pause and listen and learn. Not only are you dealing with the day-to-day operational legal work of keeping the business going, generating money, being profitable, again, in a very dynamic environment and business market. It feels like you're in your own reality TV show. But these are not episodes, it's your real life. And yes, the stakes are high, but it's what keeps the work interesting.
Stay tuned for the full interview coming to you soon. Between the Briefs is brought to you by Steno. To find out more about Steno and how we combine exceptional court reporting and litigation support services to deliver a superior litigation experience, visit steno.com. That's STENO.com. And then make sure to search for Between the Briefs in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else you get your podcasts, and click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at Steno, thanks for listening.